Julia Brown, could you join me? There she is. We're not related. I'm sorry to say that both of us having the last name of Brown, but I wish we were. So as I do so enjoy listening to Julia speak and could talk to her anytime I wanted to if we were related. So who is Julia Brown? Well, she comes to us today from New Mexico and is the chairperson of our AAUW National Board. First of all, Ms. Brown is a lawyer. She has served in the United States Army. She works in corporate America and all levels of government. So if I named all her accomplishments, she would not have time for her speech. We are so lucky to have her as our leader in AAUW, where she worked with her branch, her state, and now our national board chair. So, Julia, you are on.
Thank you, Joan. Good morning, everybody. I'd like to thank Joan for inviting me to join you today. I'm always excited about fall kickoff. To me, it presents another opportunity to spread the good news about AAUW. It represents a time to let members and those visiting and perhaps thinking about joining to get information about the events for the upcoming program year, information about interest groups, sometimes updates from state and national. Now, of course, everybody knows branches take the summer off, which makes perfect sense. Time for R&R, family travel, staycations. But what about your leadership? Do they ever really take the summer off? Can they afford to take the whole summer off from AAUW? Should your executive boards and committee chairs be using at least part of that time to plan how they will work on the shared vision for the coming program year? Let's talk for just a moment about the importance and necessity of a shared vision and how leaders can work toward creating one, and not only working to ensure the organization's mission and vision are understood, but helping each member understand their role in achieving the vision, thus making it a shared effort and a shared vision. You might be surprised how often I get questions or comments from members, typically leaders, asking, why isn't the national office doing something to help us get younger members? Or how can our branch survive if members are not willing to step up and take officer positions? Some of you might be even more surprised at my answer to those two questions. First, just to be clear, the national staff and the national board are both doing something to help you expand your membership, which could, depending on how you go about it, include some younger members. One of those efforts is the creation of the diversity toolkit. I said that once to a group of members at a state convention I was attending, and one of them said, how's that going to help? What's diversity got to do with it? I'm asking about getting younger members. Now, most of us recognize that diversity isn't just about age, race, or color. Rather, diversity is the range of human differences, including but not limited to age, race, ethnicity, gender, gender identity, sexual orientation, social class, physical ability or attributes, religious or ethical value systems, national origin, education, whether formal or informal, and political beliefs. As we seek to increase and diversify our branch membership, we should also look to be inclusive, and welcoming, meaning involvement and empowerment of our members by operating in a fashion where the inherent worth and dignity of all people are recognized. And it's not just about bringing in new members, it's also about retention of our existing members. How many of you were Girl Scouts? Well, I can't see your hands, but I'll bet some of you have raised them. Remember the song we learned at Brownie Day Camp? Make new friends, but keep the old. One is silver and the other gold. Well, that's still true. So do work to expand your membership while celebrating the diversity that all individuals bring to the table. As we work on developing and expanding our shared vision, we have to work on helping members become more comfortable sharing their perspectives outside of diversity trainings and to address diversity, equity, and inclusion, DEI, in all aspects of their work and lives. As an organization, we seek to encourage ongoing dialogue that will inspire all members to bring these values to their personal and professional interactions. Within AAUW, our goal is to turn these conversations into actionable goals and strategies for each branch. We seek to help members understand how inclusion factors into every decision made in the branch and in their lives. AAUW hopes to bring inclusion to the workplace, including transparent advancement and opportunities for development. That's what is meant when we say looking at all aspects of what AAUW does through a Jedi lens, looking at things with fresh and different eyes. Now, National can't recruit local branch members for you, only you can do that. And using the DEI toolkit is only one of the ways that you can accomplish that. Another resource that you should be using is the advocacy toolkit. And I'm going to take just a moment to drop into the Q&A some web links for you so that you'll have an opportunity when this is over with to look at these toolkits that I'm talking about. Well, I'm going to put it in the chat, although Joan said the chat was going to be used for communication among the panelists, but let's put it in there anyway, because I think you'll be able to see it. Okay, that's in the chat. So AAUW has always stood for solutions that work for all women and families. As people in the South used to say during the civil rights era, we've come too far to turn back now. Many of you have worked and fought for women's rights too long to sit by quietly now, shaking your heads and wringing your hands as we see what is happening in this country to derogate women's rights. AAUW's advocacy has made all our voices heard, from the White House to Congress to the State House. And your voice is needed now more than ever. That's why we compiled a set of resources to guide you in advocating for women and girls through a variety of tactics and actions. Now, I took a look at the AAUW Colorado website, and I was so pleased that at the top on the opening page was advancing gender equity for women and girls through research, education, and advocacy. Right there, front and center, in big bold letters for all to see, highlighting your 3 focus areas for advancing gender equity. Then, of course, by clicking on each of the 3 icons, it takes the viewer to highlighted vignettes from your branches, detailing examples, activities, events, and success stories of how and why you were involved in the various endeavors. As national, state affiliates and branches coalesce around shared objectives, missions, and visions, we find strength and power in numbers. Don't be afraid to reach out for partners and supporters as you advocate for change. Do what I like to call a mind stretch. As you plan your engagements, don't just look for the usual partners and organizations you've always worked with. Consider unlikely allies. Do a bit of research on organizations you've never worked with, because on the surface, you've looked at them and you never thought you had anything in common. But dig a little deeper. See what some of their battles have been about. Maybe you've not advocated for the same exact things, but if their views are not diametrically opposed to our mission and vision, and they've been successful in their fights, perhaps we can learn from their tools and tactics. And maybe if they understand what we're advocating for and why, they can see the value and benefit of joining in our effort. So do an environmental scan of how you're operating. Take a look at your outreach program. Question what you're co-sponsoring or co-hosting with other organizations. And don't limit yourself just to women's groups or people who look just like your group. Do that mind stretch I mentioned, because after all, you are advocating for change for everyone. Just like the AAUW vision says, we are working toward equity for all. So we want and need to have all kinds of people joining in that effort to usher in the change we need by being the change we seek. Now, back at the beginning, I said there were two questions I frequently get. The second one, how can our branch survive if members are not willing to step up and take officer positions? The answer to the second question touches somewhat on organizational structure. And yes, national staff and the board are also looking at organizational structure and realignment. Now, I'm not specifically talking about Colorado in these next few comments, but branches in general. So don't feel like I'm attacking you or criticizing you. But do you know that some branches have overly large executive boards and executive committees with a long list of officers? I've seen branches with 25 members on their executive committee. Often each position has a co. Now, don't get me wrong, sometimes in order to get people to take an office, you have to have a co-position because they don't want to do the job alone, or they're so busy in their personal lives and their careers that they don't have time to do the job alone. But it isn't always necessary that every position have a co. Ask yourself the hard governance questions. Do we really need all these officer positions? Are they working toward better and more efficient governance of the branch? Or are they there because members want to have a title or a position? Are the people in these offices working toward achieving a shared vision? And I say people because some branches have members and officers of different genders or different gender identities. So are the people in these offices working toward achieving a shared vision? Or does your executive committee actually work just like another interest group? If you've been participating in National's state liaison meetings, then you know that you're really only required to have 2 officer positions, a president or administrator and a financial officer. All the rest is based on what you determine at the local level to be what you want or need to operate efficiently and effectively. But you need to reevaluate that on a periodic basis. Now, I won't say much more about that because I don't want to steal Beth Haynes' thunder. She's going to speak to you next about membership and organizational structure issues for one thing. Pardon me. Just suffice it to say, we're looking at it at the national level, and you should be looking at it at your level, looking at this and other things, such as your strategic plan. You don't need to reinvent the wheel. Start by looking at the National Strategic Plan, which was adopted in 2018. Generally, municipalities, organizations, and entities with such plans take a relook about every 5 years, with some tweaking in the interim time period in response to major changes in the organization or serious external forces which demand modification. Right now, for almost every political subdivision and nonprofit, that external force was COVID-19, which has had a significant impact on everything and everyone, including AAUW. But my point about strategic plans is that it behooves state affiliates to start by reviewing the National Strategic Plan. Look at how that plan is applicable to your operations in Colorado, how it needs to be tailored to fit your state and local needs. Right now, the other reason to look at it is so you can start thinking about how, as a national plan, it needs to be modified, because we're at that 5-year point. We're currently working on a financial sustainability plan at national, and that's going to impact our strategic plan. So before we embark on the task of updating the strategic plan, which will involve input from all of you, we need to finish the financial sustainability plan. As you're looking at your structure and how it helps or hinders your ability to effectively and efficiently get things done, think about such resources as the bylaws toolkit, the strategic plan, the state liaison pilot program, and the work of the membership task force, and how those tools and resources can assist you. Come together to create a shared vision, identify your target audience, then work together to educate and inform both your internal and external customers of your vision, get their buy-in and their participation to implement it. I want to make just a quick comment about fellowships and grants before closing. The FY 23-24 awardees were notified in April. If you haven't seen or haven't read that press announcement, we have 285 awardees for $6.3 million. The application round for FY 24-25 is open right now. It opened on August the 1st for each of the 7 fellowships and grants, and the application period closes November 15th. One of the links I put in the chat is to the fellowship and grant spot on the AAUW website, so that you can refresh your recollection about what each of those 7 fellowships and grants are and the criteria. Publicize this with your branches, with colleges and universities, and with the media. We've been awarding fellowships and grants since 1888. We are the largest and oldest non-institutional source of graduate funding for women in the United States. Finally, on behalf of the entire national staff and board, I want to sincerely thank you for your fundraising locally and around our Greatest Needs Fund. The point of the Greatest Needs Fund is to ensure that we're always able to seize up-to-the-minute opportunities for women and girls. and that we can always address threats to equity as they emerge. Through your work on fundraising, this fall kickoff meeting, and your other year-round activities and outreach, Colorado, you're making a huge difference. So give yourselves a pat on the back and a big round of applause. Thanks for all you do for AAUW and the effort to achieve equity for all. Now let's see if we've got any questions. I don't see any.
I don't see any either, Julia. They're just, I think they're just kind of thinking about it, and maybe there'll be some here pretty soon. So I'm
Well,
hoping
hopefully I didn't put everybody to sleep, and that's why there are no questions.
I'm not guessing sleep is it. I think there's a lot to think about here. And as we wait for maybe a few thoughts from our audience, I did have a couple of things, and pardon me, I hate to put you on the spot, but when you've got a bunch of older adults here, not all of us are older, but the big takeaways from a session like this to me are important. And one of the things that came to my mind is, what do you think is the biggest challenge we face going into the next 10 years? Are we, can we see our way to see what we've got to overcome, or what we have to really make a difference in?
I think the biggest challenge for AAUW over the next 5 to 10 years is resistance to change. Times are changing. Organizations, in order not to just survive, but to grow and thrive, have to remain relevant. We have to talk to our membership base. We have to be cognizant of what's going on around us, and we have to determine what modifications we need to make to our governing documents, to the way we operate, to our finances, in order to keep up with what is happening in the world.
I appreciate that. I think that it's a lot of us feel, boy, I've been there, done that. I don't know if I've got the energy to keep transitioning and keep changing. And we have to find that energy somewhere, because it's still us. We're still here. We're still moving forward. The second thing then would be, if that's our biggest challenge, what is our greatest strength as an organization, as we've been here a long time? What is our current greatest strength, would you think?
I would say our greatest strength is our camaraderie as members of an organization. Women, and not to stereotype, but over time, women have come together in sisterhoods and organizations to spend time with like-minded people. And that camaraderie, that act of coming together for a common purpose, re-energizes us. It helps us to learn more. It helps us to grow, because just like all living organisms, if we don't move, if we don't grow, if we don't change, if we don't take in that which will nurture us, whether that is food and water or other things that help us thrive as human beings, then we're going to shrivel up and die. And organizations are the exact same way. And so our greatest strength is our ability to come together, to reason together, and to work together on solutions for the good of all.
I appreciate that. I think that you've really struck a chord with that one. That's often what people say is why they're a part of the organization. I do see a couple of questions in the Q&A, Julia, if you want to take a look. And also,
let's pop that open.
We got a couple, and we've got 2 in the chat. So I'll bring the chat ones in as well. But if you could take a look at the.
Well, the first one is from Carolyn Cooley.
Yeah,
and Carolyn, that is an excellent question that I wish I knew the answer to right off. But the question is, how do you suggest we address the technological challenges that are getting harder to overcome? Wow, that is the question for the ages. Certainly technology and its challenges and its ever-changing nature are getting hard to keep up with and hard to overcome. And now that we've got this daunting thing in front of us called artificial intelligence, we're going to face even more technological challenges in the not too distant future.
Yeah.
And I would say striving to continue to learn more about technology and how it can be our friend instead of our foe is probably the best way to try to address those challenges and to keep up with them.
Yeah, yes. And it's not just the president's role or the program chair's role, but
No, it's everybody's role.
we've got communication roles that are tough to fill now because they're so technical. We're continually looking at who's going to be our next great technology person.
Well, you know, just like they say in the airport, if you see something, say something. As a member, each of us has a responsibility and an obligation to bring to the fore new information that's going to make AAUW better. And that includes information about new technology that could be available to us that we need to be taking advantage of. Now, the next question is from Carol Newstetter, and I hope I pronounced that correctly. It says, how on the national level are you recruiting, connecting with young women from university to the boardroom to keep them engaged with AAUW? That's another good question. And we continue to do this through our fellowship and grants program by staying connected to former fellows and giving them an opportunity to bring to the table all that they have learned in their careers and how each of them can help. And you might be surprised, but every time we reach out to one of them, almost without exception, they start to talk about how the fellowship or grant they got from AAUW was the turning point in their education or in their career or in their lives, and how they are so grateful for the opportunity that we gave them, because without it, they wouldn't be where they are now in their professional lives or even in their personal lives. And so they're always thrilled to have a chance to give back. Many of them were just waiting for somebody to ask them.
I appreciate that. As you look at the third question, Bev Dare has asked about the structuring of your leadership, and Elizabeth has asked if we could pass that one. She will be responding to that as part of her presentation this morning. So I think the thing I'd like to have you look at next, I have a question from Sue Ryden, who is our policy co-director. And her question is, when will we vote on open membership again, do you think?
We think that's going to be coming next spring. We are, the National Board is looking at that now. As you know, that is largely going to be a member-led campaign, if you will. Over time, the number of times that we have voted on changing the education requirement in the bylaws, each time we've gotten closer to the required percentage of affirmative votes for it to pass. It's still a very sensitive issue for a lot of members. It's a very passionate issue. And I like to say that it does not take a 4 or even a 2-year degree for women to understand what the issues of equity, and particularly the issues of inequity, are, in order to be able to advocate for themselves and for other women and girls in the community.
I agree with you, and I think our branch is particularly interested in this particular issue. So if the National has any thoughts about how to present this and how to continue to process the journey to the next vote, we would love to see those. And
We do have, and that will be coming to you soon. In fact, I have appointed a task force of national board members, and they with the staff are currently looking at that. And very soon, they're going to be starting outreach to branches, affiliates, and to member groups that have contacted us in the past about that issue, to look at the campaign for the upcoming vote.
interesting. Interesting. I don't know if you see number 4 there, Julia, but Pam Meyer's interested in, I think this is related to the open membership vote, but would it impact our name if we changed our open policy?
No, we wouldn't. It wouldn't. We stopped being university women a long time ago. When the organization started, it was coalesced around collegiate issues and at the university level, and started as an effort to help women get tenure at universities. When we voted a number of years ago to allow men to be members of AAUW, we didn't change the name. And if we vote to change the bylaws so that a degree is no longer required to be a member, there's no need to change the name for that either. It doesn't mean that we will stop advocating for higher education. In fact, we're probably going to advocate more for higher education. But again, you don't have to have a degree to advocate for that.
I agree. It seems like a quirk that you'd need to fix, but it's not. It's not something we have to do anything about.
It's not.
I do have one question in the chat, and I just want to check and see if everybody in the audience has found where those links are that you put in that have the fellowship and grants information. I think the question came in right before they appeared in the chat. So I think we're good. I think everybody has access to those links, and hopefully they will feel that they can access all of that information that you wanted them to do. So if anybody has not figured out where that is, then put that again in the Q&A and we'll take a look at it again.
And I hope everybody took a look at those links that I dropped into the chat. If you haven't looked at those respective toolkits that are on the national website, please take a look at them. And the good part about having these links is you don't have to search for them. You can just click that link and it'll take you directly to that page on the website.
Right. Good point. Well, I'm looking. Has anything else come to anybody's mind? I think we've got a lot more to talk about today as Elizabeth joins us, but I feel, as usual, Julia, you've given us good, strong belief in the future and what's available for us to continue to dig our teeth into. There's no shortage.
No shortage, you're right.
No shortage of things we need to work on.
Not much time to sit and rest. We certainly don't have time to sit and rest on our laurels. We've done lots of great things, but there are more great things for us to do in the future. And so we need to move onward and upward.
Well, and I'm hoping people are clear that when we say a shared vision, that is something that you need to recreate from time to time. It's not something that just sits there and waits for us to remember, but we need to be continually looking at we have the mission, we have our membership issues, we have all of the things that we want to look at for the future. In my view, sometimes you need to start with the why. What's important? Where do we want to see us in 5 to 10 years, so that we can see what shared vision will get us there.
And really to also understand that we cannot be all things to all people. You know, you've got to determine what your target audience and message are and focus on those.
And go there, and go there. Do you have any last words for us? I feel like we're ready to bring Joan back
No,
on
just
the
to say
stage.
thank you. And I am excited to hear Beth.
Okay, me too.